Hey, hey, hey. Please, just take a seat. Just take a seat. We don't want to worry about order.
In the firing line here.
Hey, thank you everyone for being here. It's awesome to see such a great crowd. I hope you've been enjoying the event for the last 2 days. We're going to talk about commerce in conversational UI. Conversational UI is a great way of putting chatbots, right? Because we don't necessarily want to have textual conversations with our chatbots. As the future looks out, we're going to be having more voice conversations with these tools. So conversational UI is a great way of putting it. But if we think about what's been going on recently, we have seen an awful lot of bots launch, but we haven't seen an awful lot in the way of commerce. So to discuss that with me today, we have Seth Rosenberg, product manager at Facebook Messenger. Say hi, Seth, to everyone.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me.
We have Stacy Peterson, CIO at Wingstop.
Hello.
Chicken wings, excellent. Thank you very much. We have Mark Young, SVP Business Strategy at Fandango.
Hello.
And we have Robert Stevens, co-founder at Assi.st. Please give them all a warm welcome.
Thank you.
I like to get the round of applause in early because we can't guarantee it at the end. So, all right. So let's talk about commerce. Seth, we've been talking about the 11,000 chatbots that have been released on Facebook Messenger. I think currently there's around 22,000 developers working on chatbots for Facebook Messenger. Yep. But one of the things that's been conspicuously absent is commerce. We haven't seen any of the big analysts come out with the 2020 vision of how much this space is worth yet, although I'm hearing there might be some papers come out in the next couple of days. Where are we going with this from a commerce perspective, and what's going to be important? Is it going to be individual commerce, or is it going to be advertising driven? What's the future look like?
Yeah, one thing that really excites me is talking to people on this panel and everyone at this conference who I think are really excited about this future and really understand the opportunities here. So I think it is definitely still early, but we're starting to see a lot of opportunities in a few different areas. One is just kind of enhanced customer service, right? So you have companies like KLM who are investing heavily in messaging as a way of connecting directly with their customers, right? So everyone who books a flight over KLM gets their boarding pass in Messenger, and then they can respond, and there's a live person right there. So you have a mobile channel to connect directly with your customers. And what we've started to see are people asking, what about travel insurance? What about flight upgrades? And you have this opportunity to engage with your customers on their phone and give them products and services in a really seamless way that they're already proactively looking for. And so I think that's one huge area of opportunity is like this enhanced customer service, where you already have a connected account, you already have the user's info and payment information on file, and you're able to create a delightful experience as well as fulfill whatever intent they have. Another great example is things like Fandango, which we've been working with Mark and the Assi.st team on, which is, or things like 1-800-Flowers, where you have an experience where you're doing it once a week or once a month. You're going to a movie, you're ordering flowers. You don't necessarily need to go through the friction of downloading a whole app. And when you're on the go, you don't necessarily want to navigate a mobile website. And that's where I think the magic of bots and messaging transactions really come in, where you have a situation where you're just looking to go to a movie on the weekend and you message the Fandango bot, and it's just a streamlined, simple experience for mobile. So I think those are two really interesting opportunities.
Just a disclaimer there, I'm from the UK. We can't afford to go to the cinema once a week now that the pound has tanked. But so, Mark, what has been your experience so far with bots with Fandango, with what you've been doing? And tell us about the early experiences.
Yeah, well, I think Seth said it well. I mean, for us, these are early days. We're still in beta, and we're going to imminently be launching our first experience. But we think it solves a few things for us. I mean, I think not only the simplicity of not having to open up an app and on the go, particularly navigating through different paradigms of UI, but I think it also solves for what we've always said is we're always looking to collapse a consumer's intent to an action. So in our case, it's not today about enhanced, customer call center, collapsing. It's about group planning and buying, really, at the end of the day. So we saw a lot of natural behavior on Facebook before we even started over the years, we knew that there was conversations being had about what should we do this weekend, negotiating between friends and groups and families. And so we're leaning into a natural behavior. And for us, it's just facilitating the ability to go back and forth, whether it's watching a movie trailer to see what's happening this weekend or negotiating showtimes for the weekend. So it's a real seamless way for us to take you all the way through the consideration to a purchase. And this is the first time we actually have exposed our commerce API into a customer or a partner of ours. And we think it's because, one, there's a massive audience that already is fans of movies, and two, we think it is going to be incremental to our business. So we're very excited to see results.
And Stacy, you've had a slightly different route to getting to a bot for Wingstop. Tell us about that path and what led you towards going towards using a chatbot, in addition to all the other things that you've been doing around Wingstop.
Yeah, so Wingstop has e-commerce ordering. It's about 16% of our business. But in the restaurant space, it's really difficult to have an app for every place where you consume food. I mean, unless you're coffee or Starbucks, your very loyal guests will have an app, but mobile web has been a really important part of our digital strategy because apps just are very crowded. So this extends the amount of platforms that a customer already has and allows them to place an order with Wingstop without having the friction of downloading an app.
And what are you doing in the bot space? Is it largely an experiment for you at this point, or?
Well, I mean, I think we're the first, in the restaurant space to launch on Facebook Messenger. So clearly an early adopter. We have ordering. We chose our primary use case, which is ordering. So a customer can browse our menu. They can select all of our items and prices, but we walk them through the ordering experience all the way through the transaction at our plus 800 restaurants in the U.S.
Excellent. And in terms of the early results, what have you seen in terms of order values and anything else that you can reveal?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's still an awareness problem. It's out there, but customers don't necessarily know. We chose to be really conservative upon launch, so a guest has to engage the bot directly. I'll call it phase 2, we're going to be a little bit more aggressive in the responses that the bot takes. So if our customers are craving Wingstop or talking about wanting Wingstop, we'll have the bot engage in those conversations directly with the guest, and I think that'll really help the awareness problem.
Excellent. Robert, you've been looking at this problem from a slightly different perspective. You've been building a lot of bots for brands. What has been working and what isn't working within the chatbot environment right now as far as commerce is concerned?
Well, it's like 1994 all over again. It's like your first time you saw the web browser. It all looks like shit. These aren't even bots. They're basically scripts. Right. But that doesn't matter. I mean, before I started Assist with my 2 co-founders, I founded Geek Squad, and then I sold that to Best Buy. And I spent 10 years at Best Buy, like every other consumer, going, why do they get 120 million phone calls a year and answer 0 of them? Right. And why do stores even have phones? And this is, I will tell you personally, from my money, I'm very excited to be working with Fandango, and I'm glad that a chicken wing chain is up here, because this is where this stuff happens. It's the unsexy parts of business. I don't know any company that has ever recorded a call for quality purposes. But all I do know is that if you're born after 1985, if given the choice, you don't want to sit on hold. And I don't know that actually any generation wants to use voice. They just don't know it yet. This might take us another 3-4 years, but I'm telling you, I mean, just the ability to anticipate what people want. Like Fandango's thinking, hey, as a consumer, it'd just be super easy to buy the ticket in Facebook Messenger and walk through the door of the theater and not camp out overnight for a Star Wars sequel. But when we're in the early beta, and I'm watching the logs of what are people typing in there, and they're trying to ask Fandango a bunch of questions. Now, Fandango doesn't want to build a bunch of call centers, and they have the potential now to listen to let people type whatever they want, and maybe some new businesses come out of that. They just haven't had the opportunity, because bots represent the ability to scale customer service. Commerce is a byproduct of great service, so that's, just wind me up on this. I mean, I'm just telling you, you could aim a gun and shoot at a business and not hit an opportunity. to improve things. And like personally, for what we're aiming for is your little tiny hardware store. I mean, the big companies have resources, but the small businesses, they don't have a coffee shop at Equator. I mean, you should be able to text them what coffee you want before you stand in line. But they don't have any resources to respond to that message, and that is the purpose of the bot, is just to handle 90% of the redundant things that their little POS tablet already could probably do with the order. So that's what's so exciting about the space. You can pick any business.
I think chicken wings are sexy.
I do too, but I'm partial.
Yeah, well, it's a perfect example, right? Because a business may not even know what their customers want, because up until now, they've only really been able to hear maybe, I mean, I think businesses are happy if they get a 2% response rate on surveys. I really believe that 100% of customers do have feedback, but it's not worth it for the customer, because the business is always like, hey, we'd like you to take a survey, and it's like, I don't have 20 minutes of my time. But what if there was no survey? You could just send a message to a brand as you thought about it, and the bot would track that for you. The customer never gets any tracking for their survey. So this is where a lot of things are going to change, even from what you're thinking right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you bring up an interesting point in terms of automation. I'd like to touch on that, because if you have a bot that is completely automating the conversation, there's no human being at the end of it, there's no call center, it's not acting as a qualifying bot, it's not asking questions to figure out who to put the conversation through to next so that a human being can pick it up. The thing with that bot is that has to surprise and delight and be absolutely right every time in its response. It's got to know all the possible questions that could be asked, because if it doesn't, people are going to go elsewhere. And that's dangerous, because that's qualifying people before they even become a customer for you. That's before they even get to you. You know, whereas the bots that are acting as qualifying bots and then getting through to a human being, those are very simple qualification questions that can be asked. And then you can give it to somebody to look after it, and you keep control of the sale. What's the right balance for those? I mean, are we going to go down towards this 100% automated route? Is that more in tune with small to medium businesses, and the bigger businesses should have people behind it so they don't lose the sale? What do you think, Mike?
Well, I mean, I think we're all saying it's early days. I mean, we see today's structured messages as a start to get consumers through the use cases that we see primarily they're trying to navigate through, whether it's the discovery or buying. I mean, we're hopeful over time, whether it's Facebook or Google or Apple or all three, you know, new technologies like natural language processing, being able to have syntax where you can read keywords and invoke the actual bot without having to seek it out, you know, peer-to-peer kind of discussions. And there's a lot of technology that we're hopeful that will get to that more surprise, delight, and accuracy. You know, right now I think it is solving some friction and taking some steps out of the way. It's through structured messages, but over time we're super excited about where it goes.
You want to speak to that at all, Stacy?
I agree completely. I mean, we're starting small. We're starting with structured messages. And I think as we all get more confident in it, and as the awareness increases with the customer and how they can interact with the bot, the features of the bot, or more robust technology will start to emerge. But you've got to start small, and you've got to become confident in it.
I'm glad you used the word perfect. That is the word, right? This is the problem. A company should never ask anybody, hey, we want satisfied customers. I don't want satisfied customers. I want fanatical customers. And perfection is a good word. I used to call customers from Geek Squad after a house call, like 2 days, and I'd be like, I would ask people, are you satisfied? And they'd be like, yeah, whatever, and they'd hang up. But if you ask them, was the experience perfect? Like 5 times the number of people will stop in their tracks and go, well, actually, no. And that's when you get real feedback. And perfection really should be the goal. I mean, I still get like 5 voicemails a week because I put my phone number on my Twitter bio. Like, I get Best Buy customers still leaving me voicemails because they can't get anybody to like listen to them. And I think this is the same for most brands. And the ability, like, I'm sure you want every customer to have a perfect experience. And it's not that companies don't want to listen. It's just been too hard for them to process every message. And just going from voice to text is one of the areas that's going to let you get more insight, and personalize the experience.
Yeah, I also think the first step is just giving people a window into these delightful experiences. And then automation is just a tool to scale it and make it available to the masses. But for the companies and the early adopters that have resources, right now having this hybrid between people and automation can give people a glimpse in the future of what these experiences could be like. And then automation, I think, will evolve over time to just make it more widely available. So, I mean, like, I go back to the example of a delightful experience where you get your boarding pass on Messenger, then your flight is a little bit delayed, you get this notification, you respond and say, when's the next flight? Your account's already linked, it's booked right away. You compare that to the experience today, you go back to, is this perfect? Of course not, right? Your flight's delayed, and then you call the customer service line, you wait on hold for 45 minutes, takes up all your attention. So I think the first step is providing people these glimpses of opportunity into the future, and then automation will come as we scale.
You know, if I think about the current way that commerce works in an app environment, it's quite a long, convoluted route to purchase for people. You have to go to an app store, you have to search for something, you have to decide which app based on multitude of different things, whether it be descriptions, screenshots, just the brand maybe. Once you download that, install it, you wait, right? You've got to wait for it to install. You've got to hope it gives you the right response straight away. Otherwise, you've got to start that entire process again. Whereas with chatbots, we have the potential here because people have Facebook Messenger, or they've got something like Kik, or they've got, depending on which country you're in, QQ or WeChat or something like that. And they're able to just add the brand as a contact, start having a conversation with it. Problem is, you've got 11,000 that have been launched since April. How on earth do we find these bots in the first place? Is this just now a marketing problem? Or how are we going to fix this? Is this an advertising inject problem? And if we do that, do we start getting into issues of privacy and worries for consumers where they might be having a group chat and all of a sudden an advert pops up and it's like, well, that's a little bit creepy. How are we going to solve the findability issue?
I'm assuming you're asking me.
I'm looking straight at you, Seth.
Yeah, I'm listening.
Yeah, again, I think that, again, we're early days. I think the first huge opportunity is creating these delightful experiences for people, right? So we launched a couple months ago. We already have 11,000 bots. We've seen some amazing examples with Wingstop and 1-800-Flowers and Fandango. And once we get this critical mass of amazing experiences for people, there's so many ways that we're going to be, like, Messenger is a place that people have intent, right? Messenger is a place that people go to make plans with their friends. This is where the conversations are happening about clothes, about going out to movies, going out to restaurants. So over time, there's going to be ways for people to discover these bots. But I think what we've seen success with now is taking the existing user behavior and making it just a better experience. So you have examples of 1-800-Flowers, where after you're going through the checkout experience, you can subscribe to updates on Messenger. So you get your receipt on Messenger. And then you have an entry point of a very targeted audience, which is the 1-800-Flower customers. And then all of a sudden, they have access to this mobile experience where they can reorder flowers the next time it's a birthday or a graduation. So that's one of the big ways we've seen success here, is where people take where their customers already are and give them access to a much better experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we envision over time is, the discovery will improve if we go down a path where I was talking before, which is more of an implicit invite of like a Fandango virtual concierge. So imagine you're looking in your Messenger groups around movie, friends, and you want to see Star Trek Beyond next weekend. And so you start texting your friends, and then based on the syntax or the recognition of what you're texting, in comes the virtual assistant, and says, would you like to watch the trailer? Here's showtimes based on your geolocation. So in that environment, yes, you have to opt in at some point to be able to get that, but it's less explicit. You happen to find the bot, and it's invited into your conversation.
And that might work for digital natives who are used to giving up privacy in return for something. But people like me who are, I'm 144 this year, everybody. People like me who are a little bit older, we might not want that. How are we going to get past that? How are we going to deal with that issue? Especially when, we've got half people using Droid devices where we're kind of used to giving up a bit of our privacy in return for getting something. The other half are of the Apple camp where it's very privacy-centric and they don't want you to give up your data. How do we deal with that?
Well, I think privacy is going to bifurcate, especially in commerce, right? I mean, privacy up to now has been like a monolith, but I want the airline to remember my preferences. I want the hotel. The problem is if I fly Delta and only Delta knows I prefer an aisle seat. I think there are categories of information, especially when you're transacting commerce, that are different than everyday privacy, where you're willing to broadcast what you might call public preferences. So I'll call it prefacy, and this idea that parts of privacy might splinter off. Now, Apple had this idea of differential privacy, this idea that you could control your preferences on your device, and you could choose when to broadcast them, but you control them so that the minute you delete that from there, it ceases to be shared. It can't just be copied into through a transaction, but it could be used during the transaction but maintained by the consumer. I think something like that is going to emerge. I think most consumers want companies to personalize and are willing to give enough information about them. If most complaints I've heard from customers is that the company doesn't listen to me, they don't treat me like an individual, they make me wait on hold, they treat me like a number, that to me speaks to that. Companies want to personalize and they don't want to violate privacy, but technologically they haven't had the ability to do both. And I do think we're going to get to a point in the next decade where you'll be able to sort of have your privacy cake and eat it too.
I think it makes a really interesting point about bifurcating preference and privacy. I think, for us, and again, we don't have any plans on this yet, but you could imagine companies like ours that has a VIP membership program, you have your preferences already in your account profile. And so as you start to work with bots that, you've allowed them to take that preference in, whether it's your favorite seat in, the Century City AMC or up here in the Bay Area, you're already pre-populating fields that the consumer has shown either explicitly or implicitly that would help them through the process. So I think that's very interesting.
Yeah, and it's interesting we've taken this down the privacy and preference route because, of course, that helps you build trust, and without trust, you're not going to get people to spend money with you via a textual interface, are you? I mean, it's quite easy to get people to spend money with you when you're in a retail environment. You're maybe helping them, they take something to the till, you're inviting them to spend their money, but it's very, very different in a conversational UI space. So I'm really glad we took on privacy and preference because that's going to help us build trust. On the other side of that, though, I want to just, because we are talking about commerce, I want to understand what you are going to be tracking in order to determine success of commerce in chatbots. What are the metrics, what are the KPIs that are going to say, yep, this is a great thing, we're going to continue this? Stacy, what are the metrics and KPIs for you?
Well, for us right now, it would be % of sales, right? How many people are using it? Where any conversion fallout, where is that falling out and what's causing it? Those are the two that we're focused on right now.
And for you, Mark?
I mean, certainly we want to see sales. I mean, I think going into it for us is just the sheer volume of audience in Facebook that's going to be engaging with Fandango in new ways. I mean, we're going to be looking at total engagement. We would also like to understand the structured messages and what responses that we aren't able to today service. And so for us, I think it's a learning phase of, did we hit it right on the first outing on the use cases? Over time, we do believe that, based on what I'd said before, we're already well aware through our Facebook existing sites that we have fans that want to engage in more than just content. They want to actually take an action, and we hope that means buying tickets.
Right. Robert, what's your view? What do you think is going to?
Well, you've all been in an experiment since yesterday morning. So VentureBeat told us about the conference. I said, I'm so sick of going to a conference and they make you download the stupid app that nobody downloads. That's messaging is really good for that. It's actually a good use case. It's a fixed location, so we don't have to ask you where you are. It's a fixed number of people. It's a fixed number of days. It's about speakers and sessions. And so we built the bot to kind of test this, and we're giving Seth feedback on the WIT AI, which we're trying to use. In terms of a metric, there's only one I think that really it drives every startup today, and that's friction. Right? And friction to me has three components: effort, time, and cost. How many steps or clicks did it take for you to get what you needed to do? how many seconds or minutes or hours did it take for you to get the answer or get your thing? And lastly, what was the cost to deliver that to you and or the price to the consumer? So every time you see the word sorry, because we've been watching some of the stuff you people type in, you're all just dirty-mouthed people. That's the first thing people test out. So we're building a profanity engine within Wit AI. We're going to just give to Facebook and be like, listen, when people start testing it. So you just start looking at the behavior. But amazingly, 25% of the people that came to the conference used it, like yesterday. I would argue, I don't have any stats on it, but that feels higher than any percentage of people downloaded an app at a conference. And if we can, no offense to any app makers, but if we can kill the conference app, that is our next goal. But I would just encourage everybody to focus on the friction, right?
Right.
Because before I transact, before I converse with a company, if it's more effort, this is why everybody jumped on Uber, is because the friction is just intuitively a lot less. And if every business looks at the friction to find the location, read the menu, parse allergies, give customer feedback, that's probably the easiest place to start.
I agree with Robert. The one thing I would add in kind of that transactional cost, factors would be inherently, messaging, is more of a one-to-one or one-to-many, so that social component. And when we think about it is, ultimately, if we can use the bot to invite groups in that are movie fans that are going together to the movies, there's a lot of reduced friction and just that natural, what should we see, where should we go, what time, all the way to we're entering in with the tickets that we bought and potentially peer-to-peer payment. So we think there's a lot of value in that factor as well.
Well, you guys just bought Rotten Tomatoes, so hit me up right after I bought the movie and be like, did it suck or did it not suck? And
We don't have that exact saying, but maybe we should.
Oh, we're going to build that for you.
Suck or not suck?
Does it suck?
I love the live feature requests.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think one of the opportunities that we're all excited about is you've seen people shifting their time and their behavior away from desktop onto mobile, right? That's something we all know is happening and has already happened. But people are still transacting on desktop.
Yes.
So even though everyone's time and user behavior has shifted over to mobile, commerce and transactions haven't kept pace. And we think at a high level, this is part of the opportunity that we're solving here together, which is taking away the friction of apps and having a mobile optimized experience versus the mobile web. And I think it's still early days, but I think that's kind of the opportunity we're all really excited about.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I mean, I got some data from Skimlinks not so long ago measuring billions of transactions, cross-device transactions. And people just don't want to stand out in a public place and juggle a cell phone and a credit card at the same time and stand there typing things in. Even with the mobile payment solutions, they're not perfect at this point, so they don't want to be doing that in the field. They want to use their smartphones to review products they might be standing in front of and understand if they're right to buy, but they're going to go back to the desktop and still make the purchase. So you're in an interesting position where you could change that mobile payment paradigm with Facebook Messenger because you have the persistent login. You've probably already got their card details. You've got mine from Angry Birds Friends, that's for sure. So that's already stored in there. I could use that now to buy absolutely anything. I think so that goes back to friction, right, Robert? I mean, that's reducing the friction right away along the line.
This is great news for everybody, but Facebook and for the users. Seth and I grabbed coffee this morning across the street after having to stand in line to place my order instead of typing it in. But I said, think of the news feed. Up until now, in the entire history of advertising is an advertisement, I look at it, I never click on it. But if I do, I know it's going to take me away from what I'm doing. Right. But what if an ad turned into a bot? Hey, there's cheap flights to Hawaii. I'm not planning a trip to Hawaii right now, but I might say, let me know, well, does it go to Lanai? Well, let me know when it does. And, the ad turns into a conversation, and I can ask a question and get an answer. And then later, I'm sort of giving it permission to ping me when the price changes or something. So messaging can play a role compatible with desktop commerce, which is that I might be looking at a product and have a question, and I don't even need the answer right away. I just need to know, did the company get the question? And just let me know when you'll get back to me, like FedEx does with package tracking. So maybe later on at my desktop, it pops up and says, are you interested in learning more? And so this is where even our notion of what an ad does and how it operates, I think, has an opportunity to become more functional for the user.
Excellent. Well, look, we're almost out of time, but I just wanted to ask Seth one more question. In terms of the categories of bots, industry categories, where are you seeing real traction in the early days with the 11,000 bots that have been launched? And where are the highest daily active users being found?
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of success in a bunch of different categories. One is kind of commerce and customer service, right? So Shopify has an e-commerce platform, and they have tens of thousands of retailers on their platform, and they're all using the Messenger platform to send receipts and respond to customer service. And that's one use case that is just a great experience for the businesses and a great experience for people, because it's interactive, it's on their phone, and they get that instant kind of customer service. Another category that we're seeing being very successful is like these kind of social transactional use cases, like 1-800-Flowers, like Fandango, where people want to get a task accomplished really quickly, right? So after they set up their account once, it's super easy to find movies in your area, buy flowers because you've already set up your account. And then last is a lot of the news and media bots that we've seen, like the NBA bot launched, which was one of my favorites. Right. Obviously because the Warriors were in the finals, and I don't want to call myself a bandwagon fan, but I'm not originally from the Bay Area. But I still obviously care about the Warriors and care about the community and my city, and so. But I'm sometimes pretty busy trying to build the Messenger platform, and so I don't have time to see every single game. But them sending me video highlights of the game after. Just helps me keep up with what I want. So those are kind of three categories that have been really interesting.
Excellent, thank you so much. The press in the room, you heard it here first. We found the one man at the end there who's still using voicemail, so
well, I use Google Voice, but I still email the files to Best Buy. I'm like, I got another one. Another call came in today.
Listen, thank you so much, Robert, Stacy, Seth, and Mark. It's been fantastic. Please give them a warm round of applause. Thank you.
Good job.
All right.